Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Mukhaṁ karoti vācalam tvangom langayate girim Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. Continuing 1.5, text 15. Yad Anudhyasina Yuktaha Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti Kovidas Tasya Ko Na Kuryat Katha Ratim Yadanudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti Kovidastasya Ko na kuryat katharatim Yadanudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti Kovidastasya Ko na kuryat katharatim Yadanudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti Kovidastasya Ko na kuryat katharatim
Yadanudhyasina Yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti Kovidastasya Ko na kuryat katharatim
Yad anudhyasina yukta Karma Granthi Nibandhanam Chidanti
Granthi not Nibandhanam internet Chidanti cut Kovidah intelligent Tasya his Kaha who Na by remembering the personality of Godhead, therefore who will not pay attention to his message? Kindly repeat after me. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore who will not pay attention to his message? Purport: the contact of the knot which must be cut wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastime alone predominates. Then liberation is even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about Him, by glorifying Him, by remembering Him, and by worshipping Him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the Bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for they have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. And the translation again. So the reference or the point being explained here is how when we come to this material world, we become heavily conditioned by the modes of material nature. And factually speaking, he's totally bound up, and we were discussing about Arjuna's question, the deep root cause of our bondage in the material world is this very deep-rooted desire to enjoy, because that is our natural constitutional position. But we don't know what is the proper way to enjoy, or the proper way to be happy, which is on the transcendental platform. Therefore we try and try and try again to be happy through this body, through these senses, through the mind, through the intelligence. So here this nice that Vedic knowledge, transcendental knowledge, acts like a sword to cut through this heavy bondage that all of us find ourselves in. I'm sure you've heard the explanation given by so it is very very strongly binding the living entity. So therefore until and unless one cultivates, unless one gets an opportunity to hear or to receive this transcendental knowledge. His condition, as described in the Shastra, is that he is eternally conditioned. Nitya Baddha. Nitya Baddha. So therefore the absolute necessity to cultivate this knowledge, and the same points are being stressed here, which we have heard in the last few days. The foremost of activities being to constantly be hearing. We will find out later in the Bhagavatam how those who are that is nicely described by Narada Muni. There are 5 clearly defined ways, especially for householders, enter into a householder life, and therefore householders especially are highly recommended to be hearing. Actually, the first activity that of course it's a common activity for everyone, but especially recommended for householders, is to be daily worshipping their own deities. Even now, Prabhupada explains, it's a very nice system, because I remember visiting one family, Indian family in Canada, and actually people who from India, even they go away from India. Of course, many people, they end up discontinuing their practices, but this particular family, every day they had actually deities of Radha and Krishna in their home. They were initiated, of course, but and there were like maybe 5 or 6 members, father, mother, then like 3 or 4 children. Every single member, every day, they would spend 1 or 2 hours. It's like in a temple. It's like in a temple. They, you know, the Matajis would be making garlands, and some of them would have prepared some preparation to be offered after the dressing. And so whenever we would have, on a regular basis, devotees would be invited to their home for the program, evening program, and it was just like a temple. Actually, you could see the very high standard, because their whole life was molded, centered around worshipping Krishna and hearing these basic activities. Whole Vedic culture is therefore giving us that facility, and Prabhupada would explain also that we are meant to of Krishna consciousness, and especially by this process of hearing, then we will actually be cultivating knowledge. Knowledge is our weapon. Knowledge for the Brahmanas is the Shastra, Astra and Shastra, as it is explained. The Kshatriyas, they have their own weapons to defeat the enemy, and the Brahmanas also have their weapon, which is knowledge. Therefore, we are constantly being reminded to try and see and understand events, whatever is taking place, through the eyes of Shastra, not through our own limited, imperfect material mind and intelligence. It is a cultivation, it's a training. In the beginning, it's not immediately spontaneous. How after he explains to Krishna, I will not fight. And then he lays his bow, and he's in that very pitiful condition, full of anxiety and morose. And what is the first thing that Krishna does? Hearing from Shastra, we must understand how this is how we can defend ourselves. This is how we can conquer over. As Prabhupada would explain, when we become a devotee, we are declaring war on Maya. So if we forget that we're at war, then that's not a good situation. It's like if someone is fighting, you've seen boxing match. In a boxing match, you have to be on guard all the time. Because somebody's going to come this way. You're on guard. So if we let our guards down, if we're not attentive, then boom, right and left. 1, 2, 3, you're down. Knockout. We are free to serve Krishna. Those who don't want to serve Krishna fully, wholeheartedly, without any motivation. So we are constantly being attacked, means we are being tested again and again. And it is only when we actually reach a certain level, there will come a time, because all of us, this has been our situation and our experience in the material world. Every time we are taking birth, especially in the human form of life, because there we have an opportunity, but if we miss that opportunity, we remain. So this is the opportunity that okay, that's okay. This is what awaits a person who is diligent in regularly hearing, so that he can actually cultivate knowledge, which will in turn this transcendental knowledge will help us to defeat Maya. We have to act, we have to do things, but they should be done without creating karmic reaction. So Prabhupada in the last portion of the purport, making nice reference to the Goswamis of Vrindavan. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the Bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule, this rule of constantly be hearing. If we could only learn to simplify our lives, and simplify our lives means we are dealing with one another, how we are reacting to different events and circumstances, so that we avoid being caught up actually by Maya, and both individually and collectively, if we can do. We also will find that we lose a lot of time. We waste a lot of valuable time. And so therefore Vedic culture again and again is inviting us to in Krishna consciousness so that we don't get lost or diverted or entangled or involved in unnecessarily, disputes. People will in the material world, people will carry things to the grave, isn't it? They'll remember what this one did to him, etc. like that. They'll project here. Saintly kings, they would build this Gurukul, within no time. And they would go out of their way because they knew the value. They knew the value of Brahmanas. And Gurukul, of course, is to train Kshatriyas. And therefore in the Vedic culture, Prabhupada explains, Brahmanas would not be taxed because their activity is most valuable for society. And anyways, they don't have any salary. They don't take any salary, so there's nothing to tax. And they would organize also so many different kinds of cultural events, all in relation to Krishna consciousness, to help the vast majority of people, the general population, to somehow or other become connected with Krishna consciousness. So only with this kind of understanding, where one's life becomes simplified, and where we are not up on the bodily platform, either because of various disturbances of nature or from other people. The value of having a simplified lifestyle is that we can give more time to either remembering or discussing. So this is text number 1515, Divinity and Divine Service. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? The binding knots of reaction. We are karmic. We have created and we are living out, we're forced to live out both good and bad karma. Both good and bad karma, Prabhupada will explain, are bad. Both are bad. So karma is what is binding us. How very scientifically this happens. Yeah. So any thoughts on this?
Can you please repeat the 5 clearly defined ways, especially for householders? First hearing, second worshipping, third 4, 5.
Oh, okay. Actually, that is found in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't have it. Actually, I do have it. But somewhere. It's right here. I can probably find it very quickly. 7 very nice instructions given by Narada Muni specifically for householders. Of course, it can also be applied for everyone, but this is someone was asking, Maharaj, where did you get this book? You know what is this book?
I never seen.
This is entire 7th canto, right?
Huh?
Entire 7th canto?
This book is one of a kind. No one in the world has this book except me.
Oh, very good.
Written by Prabhupada.
Last chapters of the 7th canto. It is Narada Muni's dissertation on Varnasrama.
Only 5 chapters.
Yeah. And you know, it's a regular book. They're very expert. So someone was, where was this printed? You know. So it was just put together by. So let me see. This is chapter 11 to 15 of the 7th canto, and I believe it is chapter. Let's see here, ideal family life, which is yeah, ideal family life, and but then also the exact verses. Let me read this short paragraph. How many householders here? 1. Okay. And there are many more online. At least one who's asking the question. Worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaishnavas and saintly persons. So worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, actually that's number 1. Number 2 is receiving Vaishnavas and saintly persons. Like Prabhupada, he would explain, every day my father, his father, Gaur Mohan Dey, every single day would have sadhus for lunch. Yeah. So 1, worshipping the Supreme Lord. 2, receiving Vaishnavas and saintly persons. Number 3, distributing, so that was 4, right? Worshipping. 1, 2, receiving guests, receiving Vaishnavas, saintly persons. Number 3, distributing prasadam to the general public. Then others, and number 5, and also offering prasadam to oneself. Means taking only Krishna prasadam.
Outside food, no.
No outside food. Yeah. Grihasthas should always be ready to worship everyone, as mentioned above. The Grihastha should not eat anything not offered to. They don't take prasadam. Every bite that we take when we're not devotee is creating karmic reaction. Yeah. The Grihastha should also visit the holy places of pilgrimage mentioned in the Puranas. In this way, he should fully engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the benefit of his family, his society, his country, and humanity at large. Nice program for Grihasthas. This particular chapter is very, very important. I'll just read one last line here. Specifically, okay, I'll read 2 lines. Although a Grihastha should externally be very active in earning his livelihood, he should be active in doing something. He should internally be situated as a fully self-realized person. Externally we may be busy, but internally we should never forget, we should be cultivating trying to remember, etc. And then the other, specifically, a grihastha should engage in agricultural activities to earn money. It's right there, black and white. And I'll just continue. This is in the introduction. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1844, Krishi Guraksha Vanijam, agriculture, crop protection, and trade are special duties of grihastha. Special duties of grihastha. And if the grihasthas do that, then the brahmacharis will be very happy. Yeah.
One devotee is right, same devotee receiving Vaishnavas difficult in COVID-19. COVID lockdown.
You can receive them online. Ask